Paltrocast.
Bill, how's the day going aside from answering the same questions over and over and over again?
I'll take the fifth. No, I'm doing fine. It's Darren, right?
It is Darren. It is
Darren,
Darren.
where are you today?
Long Island, New York, where you've played a few times before.
Yeah, I like Long Island. I'm in Montana. It's a beautiful day here. Spring has finally sprung. So all is well, man.
Are you in the same part of Montana as Letterman and John Mayer and Huey Lewis?
Uh, Mayor is up the road a bit from here. Let's see. I think Huey's. I'm not sure where Huey Lewis is. I just contacted him a while ago. And Letterman, I don't know, but there's a lot of celebrities up here. I don't count myself as one of them, but I've been up here since 1980, and
Wow. Well,
yeah,
before I ask you about Sam's place, I mean, growing up, there's a couple of states as a New Yorker you kind of make fun of or look down on where you think that there's nothing happening. And Delaware, Wayne's World kind of reinforced that. And Montana, I think Frank Zappa has that song about, I think I'm moving to Montana. So you think of Montana as this, nothing going on place, but then you learn Bill's there and Nikki Sixx and all the people I mentioned. What led you to Montana?
it's a horrible place first and foremost. So unless you're
Yes,
in
don't go there.
a dental was a dental floss tycoon sort of business, I'd stay away.
Yeah,
Uh,
Zappa.
I,
Good.
I don't know, but it's a nice place. Um, yeah, Sam's place. We should talk about Sam's place for sure. That's
Yeah, let's talk about Sam's Place. When did you actually finish it? Because it was more than 10 years since the last Little Feat full length we got treated to.
we finished it a few months ago actually, and it had been in the works for many years,
Hmm.
but put on the back burner for whatever reason. And with new management, which is to say Vector Management, which includes Brian Penix and Ken Levitan,
Yeah.
they kind of said, let's do this. When I brought it up to Brian, we were watching a one of the gigs we played at the in Albany at the Egg,
Oh, yeah.
and Sam was probably singing apolitical blues, and he says, "God, he sure sounds good." I said, I wanted to do a blues album on this guy for a long time. What do you think? He goes, "That'd be perfect. Let's talk to Ken." So we did. Um, it's the cool thing about this, Darren, is this whole record is the amount of energy with this new band we have, which includes some New Yorkers, Tony Leone on drums, Scott Sherrard on guitar, vocals, etc. The synergy of the band right now is in a really, really good place. And um, this album has Sam Clayton singing every song. He's joined by Bonnie Raitt on one of them. Um, I think it was last night, I think. I'm not sure the song that she's on, but I think that's it. But she suggested a tune that's out there right now called You'll Be Mine, written by
Hmm.
Willie Dixon. And when Bonnie speaks, I listen, as does the band. And so we
I,
so
I
we
get it.
recorded it. Yeah, no, and it's just people that have heard it, they said, it's got an energy we haven't heard in a very, very long time. And I would agree with them. We recorded it in Memphis, Tennessee, at Sam Phillips, one of his studios. His son was there,
Hmm.
who was a midget wrestler a long time ago, and then they found out it was just a kid. So it's the South. What can I tell you?
Tennessee is still a wrestling capital of the world. I just did a reality show junket about this little person wrestling league that's based out of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So
Oh,
nothing you're going to say about wrestling in the South surprises me.
no, no, it's all good. And we, of course, said yes to everything that we weren't saying no to. So it was good.
Yeah, so there's a few songs that were written by Willie Dixon on this album and Muddy Waters. So I think you're giving the publishing money to the people who deserve it, who may have gotten stiffed by Led Zeppelin.
Oh, okay. Well, uh, yeah, I hope that's the case, and not the case with Led Zeppelin. I don't know. I the blues. We Little Feat has always had quite an affinity for it. Even before I joined the band, there was a place in Ventura, California called the Back Door,
Hmm.
which was open only for the year 1968. Bob Jones was the fellow that ran the place, and I met Taj Mahal there the first time.
Hmm.
I was in a band that played in the place. It was I don't know. We must have played some blues of some sort, but yeah, it was just. I've also marveled at how the European audiences were more ahead of us on the blues curve um, back in the '60s, which was Howlin' Wolf and Willie of course, and Muddy Waters, etc., Lightning Hopkins,
Right.
on and on and on, and they had a much better sense of what the blues were than we did. And I'd point to the Rolling Stones on that one as well.
Well, I could, to rudely interrupt you, I could say the same about Little Feat in that what I'd heard from a friend who's working in Japan was how big or how much bigger Little Feat was in Japan in certain respects than in the States. So it's one of those bands where you're a cult following in this country, you're mainstream in that country, you're a legend in that thing, where Little Feat has meant different things to different people around the world.
Yeah, it has. We're like the elephant and the blind man, I guess. And my career has paralleled that as well. I mean, they think, oh, the guy's a blues piano player, And somebody asked me, I was going to play on the record. He goes, "Do you play Hammond B3?" And I go, "Well, I played it on Against the Wind for Bob Seger. Yeah, I do."
Yeah, your session credits are spectacular, and I don't think all the dots are connected that people know that it's you on there. Did you set out to be a session person, or is it one session led to another, led to another?
What's funny, I'm writing a memoir. It's called Carnival Ghosts, and I'm writing on that very that very subject right now. I mean, it's the part of the book I'm at this point in time. I'm gonna pretty much put into one chapter, or maybe I'll spread it over a few, but I'm gonna write about what it is to be a session guy and what led me to it. I Lowell George initially got me started playing on people's sessions by bringing me in, like to John Cale,
Hmm.
his stuff, not J.J. Cale, but and I played it with J.J. later, but
Right.
John Cale on one of his famous albums, and John Sebastian. Um, my book from 1973. It's a notebook here. I'll show you. And it's sessions from
Wow.
1973, and it's got Sebastian, Doobie Brothers, Bonnie, and then later it says Bonnie Raitt, right? So there was two Bonnies I was working with. Bonnie
I'm gonna
Bramlett,
guess Delaney and Bonnie.
that's right, Bonnie Bramlett and Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
And it gets a little confusing at times. I was also doing work in New York with Chris Smithers. I worked in a recording studio with him.
Yeah.
Joel Sauce, who I don't know if anybody knows who he is anymore, but um, I was trying to Google him and I couldn't find him. So, um, but yeah, I I didn't initially know what would happen. I mean, uh, but that gig, being a session guy, is kind of like, you're only as good as the last show you played or the last record you played on. Perception's everything, and word of mouth. It's still that way to this day. So
Sure.
I'm heading over to Brussels in May, following a piano night in New Orleans, uh, to play some stuff and play some New Orleans type music, and then get home. I think Tuesday, and on Thursday I'm on a flight to Brussels to work with Eddie Mitchell, who's a French artist. He does rock and roll. He's a friend of Johnny Holliday's, and was a friend of Johnny Holliday's.
Hmm.
Well, I also worked on one of his records. So yeah, it's been a wonderful parallel career to playing with Little Feat. But when I was in Santa Maria, I used to play with a lot of bands up there too. I was in a group called the Debonaires and was playing with the Chevrons, and
Hmm.
I was sitting with other groups. So I guess I had that. I didn't wasn't known for anything back then. but you just sort of your talent can take you only so far, and but you have to have it to begin with, I guess.
The memoir question was something I was going to ask you, so I'm glad that that's happening. But a recurring theme that you've brought up that I don't think you realize is you mentioned Bonnie Raitt earlier, but you did Bonnie Raitt sessions. You mentioned the Doobie session, yet you filled in with the Doobies on the road. Obviously, Lowell came up. You later collaborated with Inara, who's a fantastic artist in her own right. So there's a lot of people that you worked with in the 70s and then again in decades following. There's a lot of long-term relationships, Bill. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, there are, and um, you just never know. I mean, uh, I'm kind of the last of the original band.
Yeah.
Uh, However, Kenny and Sam are still with us, thankfully, and um, but in terms of the blues and Sam's place and the amount of songs that Willie Dixon played on, there was a there was a date I played with Paul and Richie and George Porter for the Meters. George
Mm-hmm.
was the he was tapped to be the musical director. Well, we worked. It was a tribute to John Lee Hooker, whom I think a month or two later I played on one of his records. And let's see, we had on that date, and John Lee, I mean, he walked in. I think Bonnie helped him out that evening, but he walked into the Madison Square Garden with a beautiful black woman on each arm, and but I was playing with Willie Dixon, Johnny Winter,
Mm-hmm.
Doug Allman, and Joe Cocker as between 18 and 20,000 people there that night. It was an amazing show.
You just said an Allman member, and yet you're playing with Tedeschi Trucks in support of this Little Feat record. So again, that's a decades later kind of relationship thing for you.
Yeah, and I think we met Derek when he was forgive me, Derek, you were either 12 or 13, maybe 14. I thought you were younger, though. The guitar was almost as big as he was. And we were in North Carolina playing at one of the House of Blues, I think, that was there. And he was just terrific then. Obviously, he's great now. Susan's a delight. So we're very pleased to be playing shows with them. I mean, honestly, Darren, the other part of this is the longevity
Mm-hmm.
of people who play music that are dedicated to it. It's that's all fine and well, but you need an audience in order to do it.
Well,
And
I get it. And one thing I'm very curious about is looking at that upcoming schedule. Yes, there's headline dates, and you're with Susan and Derek, then you're supporting the Avett Brothers, then you're co-headlining with Los Lobos. Now, if you're playing with Susan and Derek, you can improvise as much as you want because that kind of crowd gets that. Yet the Avett Brothers, do you have a different set? Do you have to do more hits-oriented kind of stuff?
I think in both cases, I know that um, management would like you to do more hits if we don't have them, but I mean,
I
recognizable
disagree.
songs.
You do have hits.
Well,
They
not
were,
like the Doobie Brothers. They had hit records. I mean,
yeah.
we have songs that are popular, but we're never uh, AM hit radio. That's the era I came from. Was like you know listen to the music and all that stuff. We didn't have one of those, but we had some good songs and we reached a lot of people. But the sales wise, those guys selling the millions, and we're not quite on that level. But
But you got
we've
covered a
always been
lot.
everybody's favorite surfing spot, our secret surfing spot.
Sure. The Montana, if you will, of
Yes, get lost. No.
so so what I'm hearing is management's pushing for the hits. You're pushing for just putting on the best show possible.
Yeah, and we all agree on that, by the way. It's just, and I love the people that are handling our affairs business wise, and that's from everybody from Seth Rappaport on up and down. I mentioned Brian and Ken earlier. To have people on your side Dennis McNally, for example, who's one of our publicists. He's terrific. I mean, we have a really really great team
Mm-hmm.
now, and that's the reason Sam's Place is a product, and it's the band brought the energy to it. Scott Gerard said, "Let's go to Memphis to record. Let's make it an event." And I agreed. So did Ken Levitan.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of good thinking going into this, and we just recorded an album in Blackbird Studios in Nashville, all new material. It sounds absolutely amazing. We use the same horn section. Um, Mark and Art from Memphis to
Mm-hmm.
play on. They're on the blues record, and it's just things are coming together for us. So it's nice.
You're not slowing down on the touring or the recording end. You have
Nope,
a
just
book,
lost you there for a second.
etc. So we'll catch you on the
Oops.
next junket. But I got one more question, then I let you go, Bill. You ready for that one clickbait question?
Sure.
Okay. So one of your sessions was on a Nicolette Larson record that
Mhm.
Ted Templeman did. And infamously, that album had a young guitar player named Eddie Van Halen on it. Were you around the Eddie Van Halen session by any chance?
I wasn't, but I met Eddie through Ted Templeman when we were making, I think it was the record, what was it? Time Loves a Hero.
Mm-hmm.
We were at Sunset Sound, and right across from where we were recording, whether it was Studio A or B, Eddie was in the next room and he had recorded Apolitical Blues. So I walked in to say hello. The guy shook his hand, and a nice fella, and played beautifully, obviously. And um, yeah, but that was cool. I mean, trying to. Thanks for the reminder on that too. I should put that into the book.
I look forward to that being in the book, but I think the bottom line is the Ted Templeman connection led to the Doobies, led to that session. So thank you, Ted, for giving the world
Yeah,
more.
Ted Templeman. I was just writing about the Warner Brothers in general, but Ted Templeman and Van Dyke Parks are two people that really came to bat for Little Feat in a big way. I mean, Van Dyke Parks, maybe we would have landed somewhere else, but Warner's was ready to drop us before Sailing Shoes.
Mhm.
And Van Dyke was working on, I think it was a American Journey, or I don't know the title of his album. I've got it in the book, obviously, but he and Lowell were working on a song called Sailing Shoes. And, and Van Dyke told the brass at Warner Brothers, "Hey, either you keep Little Feat in your stable here, or I'm not delivering this album."
Wow. And then fast forward a couple decades later, Van Dyke does an album with Inara George. And
Correct.
just what we're learning is Bill Payne doesn't burn any bridges, nor do any of the Little Feet people.
We try not to.
Paltrocast.